Tonight on NewsCenter. UN Security Council diplomats warn North Korea to expect a response after Pyongyang's repeated failed attempts to test fire a powerful ballistic missile, the latest defiance of UN resolutions. China and Russia together call on North Korea to refrain from launching any new provocations, pledging thorough implementation of UN sanctions on North Korea. The two also express concern over a U.S. missile shield in South Korea. And Korea's overall industrial output picked up pace in March, and domestic consumption recorded the highest on-year gain in 4 months. But it's not all good news. We'll tell you why. NewsCenter begins right now. It's 9 in Washington, 2 in London, and 10 on a Friday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang News Center. The UN Security Council is weighing a response to North Korea's failed test firing of ballistic missiles. The UNSC convened an emergency closed-door talks in New York at the request of the United States following Pyongyang's unsuccessful launch of 2 missiles and as fears grow that the regime is preparing to conduct a 5th nuclear test. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports Seoul's defense ministry, meanwhile, expects more test firings to come in the next few days and weeks.
South Korea says it is very likely that North Korea's recent missile launches won't be its last. Defense Ministry spokesperson Moon Sang-gyun said Friday that given that North Korea dared to test 2 of its Musa missiles after its previous failures, we cannot rule out the possibility of Pyongyang conducting more launches. North Korea attempted to launch 2 mid-range Musa ballistic missiles from its eastern coastal city of Wonsan on Thursday. The first missile reportedly went off course and crashed into the sea seconds after the launch, while the second exploded in midair after being airborne for about a minute. Seoul believes Pyongyang is trying to build up its accomplishments ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress next week.
Domestically, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is attempting to show off the regime's state-of-the-art weaponry to its people, that it is a powerful nuclear state. At the same time, it's trying to appease the United States for bilateral negotiations and be recognized as a valid state.
In response, the international community is expected to take strong measures against Pyongyang. The UN Security Council is currently holding an emergency meeting and is expected to adopt a statement condemning Pyongyang, as Security Council resolutions ban North Korea from any kind of launch using ballistic missile technology. Members of the Council already adopted a statement against North Korea for its missile tests and its test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile earlier this month. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Well, North Korea threats topped the agenda when China and Russia's foreign ministers met on the sidelines of a regional security meeting in Beijing. The two countries see eye to eye on the need for Pyongyang to refrain from any further provocations and in pledging to fully implement UN sanctions on North Korea. What the two also agree on, though, is the resumption of the long-stalled 6-party talks, as well as concerns of a possible deployment of the U.S.'s THAAD missile defense system in South Korea. Our Connie Kim fills us in on what was discussed by the two traditional but now not so much allies of North Korea.
China and Russia called on South Korea and the U.S. to discuss the swift resumption of the 6-party denuclearization talks and continued to voice their concern over the possible deployment of the U.S.-made anti-ballistic missile system known as THAAD to South Korea. The comments came from Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov during a meeting on the sidelines of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, or Zika, in Beijing on Friday. Lavrov said he and Wang had discussed the escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula following Pyongyang's 4th nuclear test and said denuclearization talks are the most effective path to regional security in Northeast Asia. The Chinese and Russian diplomat also sent out a consistent message over the deployment of the THAAD system to the Korean peninsula.
This move goes beyond the defensive needs of the relevant countries. If it is deployed, it will directly impact China's and Russia's respective strategic security.
We've stressed how counterproductive and dangerous are attempts to use Pyongyang's actions, no matter how unacceptable they are, as a pretext, as a reason to increase military presence in the region and to unfold here a segment of a global anti-missile U.S. defense system.
Seoul and Washington agreed to formally discuss deploying a THAAD battery to South Korea, following North Korea's long-range ballistic missile launch in February. China and Russia have both been against the deployment, as they believe it would give the U.S. an edge in regional security affairs. The two diplomats also had a clear message for the North: abstain from any new provocations. Many observers in South Korea say, however, that might be wishful thinking at this point. With North Korea's recent missile launches having ended in failure, the speculation that the North will go ahead with its fifth nuclear test next week ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress has ticked up a notch. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, inside the reclusive state, North Korea, the Kim Jong-un regime seems to be tightening its grip on the people ahead of a rare Workers' Party Congress set for next Friday. It's imposed travel bans around the state and enforced a curfew, among other things. Our Park Ji-won takes a look inside the secretive state.
North Korea is reportedly tightening its control over its people as its Workers' Party Congress on May 6 draws near. North Korea has put the country under a heightened state of alert for the 70-day period leading up to the Congress, but it has been intensifying the measures in recent days. Seoul-based Yonhap news agency reported Friday, citing unnamed sources, that the regime has barred entry and exit to and from the capital city of Pyongyang and along the north's border areas with China. The North Korean authorities has also stopped issuing travel permits for the rest of the country. The permits are required for all citizens wanting to travel to other provinces for personal reasons or business trips. If caught traveling without the document, citizens are sent to a work camp for a few months. According to the Yonhap report, the North's control over its people has reached a point where it's impeding people's ability to work. The authorities are reportedly making daily surprise visits to people's homes or arbitrarily stopping cars and people on the streets for questioning. The regime has also imposed a curfew of 10 p.m. The regime has also ordered citizens to delay personal or family matters like weddings or funerals until after the party congress is over. Some experts view the measures as a way for the regime to prevent defections or crimes before and during the party congress, the first in 36 years. The regime usually imposes special controls on its people during major national holidays such as New Year's Day, the birthdays of former leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, the day of the regime's foundation on September 9th, and the day of the party's foundation on October 10th. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea and the U.S. wrapped up their annual joint military drills. The official drills are effective through Saturday, but the actual training came to a close today. Our national defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has more on the two allies' largest joint military exercise to date that was carried out without any hiccups despite continued threats from North Korea.
The 2016 Key Resolve and Four Eagle drills, the largest ever, have ended in success, demonstrating the strength of the South Korea-U.S. defense posture.
The field training exercise Four Eagle kicked off on March 7th alongside the command post exercise Key Resolve, which ran for 2 weeks. The combined set of drills were the largest of their kind and came on the heels of Pyongyang's fourth nuclear test and intercontinental ballistic missile launch earlier this year. The exercises involved 300,000 South Korean troops and 17,000 U.S. troops, along with key strategic weaponry from the U.S., including a nuclear carrier and a submarine. During the drills, the Allies implemented Operational Plan 5015 for the first time. The strategy includes rehearsals for a preemptive strike on North Korea's key military facilities and its leadership.
During the exercises, South Korea and the U.S. enhanced our interoperability in countering diverse types of threats from the North.
Even though the drills have ended, the South Korean military is still on high alert for possible provocations from the North, including a fifth nuclear test and ballistic missile launches. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea's overall industrial output rose for the second straight month in March. Domestic consumption picked up pace, but numbers suggest it's too early to tell. Our Hwang Ji-hye takes a closer look at whether the Korean economy is finally finding its feet after sitting in the doldrums for months.
Korea's industrial output picked up pace in March, rising 0.6% from the previous month. This is after figures dropped in January only to rebound the following month. In terms of last month's output, despite a production drop in the mining and manufacturing sectors, output across all industries rose thanks to robust activity in the construction and service sectors. But it's not all good news, as the rise in construction was mainly driven by state-run projects that swelled investment in social overhead capital as the government front-loaded its budget in the first quarter. When looking at production figures in the first 3 months of this year, the industrial output remained unchanged from the previous quarter, while output in the service sector actually dropped. Retail sales that rose over 4% in March from a month earlier also slid in the first quarter, deepening concerns from early this year that Korea might see a drastic drop in spending.
Late last year, domestic demand was doing better than exports, and that was due to the consumption tax cut on products like automobiles. Although the tax discount was extended in the first quarter, people have already bought whatever durable goods they need, so now we're facing the reality of consumption falling off a cliff.
There is a silver lining ahead, though, as the business sentiment index for this month came in at 71, up from 68 tallied a month earlier, according to the Bank of Korea. Although this signals confidence is on the rise among manufacturers, prospects are not quite bright enough, as the figure remains well under 100, showing pessimism still prevails. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Well, duty-free stores in Korea has become a hugely lucrative business. The nation is the world's largest duty-free market, so it's really no surprise that there is a fierce competition among operators in this country. Well, brace yourselves for a dramatic showdown in the months ahead, as there are now 4 more tickets up for grabs for operators to enter this market. Our Kim Min-ji has more on the Korean government's latest decision to grant more duty-free store licenses.
Who will be part of the next lucky batch? The Korea Customs Service says it will issue another 4 licenses for duty-free stores in Seoul to meet the growing demand from foreign tourists. And as part of efforts to support tourism sectors in other parts of the country, it will also permit a license for 1 store in the southern port city of Busan, as well as 1 in Gangwon-do Province, where the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics will be held.
The move will support the government's efforts to revitalize the local tourism industry. We look forward to creating at least 5,000 new jobs and investments worth nearly $1 billion.
Currently, there are 9 operators in Seoul. Last year, HTC Shilla Duty-Free, Hanwha Galleria, and SM Duty-Free won new licenses to open stores in Seoul. Lotte World Tower and SK Walker Hill lost their bids to renew their licenses to Dusan and Shinsegae. Lotte and SK are being considered as potential winners for their expertise in this sector, along with Hyundai Department Store, one of the country's major retailers. There has been intense competition for duty-free licenses in the country, as the business has become a huge source of profit. Sales of stores in Seoul combined topped $8 billion last year. It's been growing at an average rate of 20% annually over the past 5 years, driven mainly to the growing number of tourists, especially from China. However, there has been criticism that there are too many stores concentrated in Seoul, and the government is being under fire for giving preferential treatment to large conglomerates.
Preferential treatment has long been an issue in the sector, as it was limited to oligopolization. Through new selection processes, the newcomers will need to think about how they can mutually benefit with local businesses in the area.
The customs agency will draw up measures to ensure the transparency and fairness in selecting the winners. The detailed application schedule will be announced next month, and the process is expected to be complete by the end of this year. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, with dedicated viewers from all corners of the globe, the Korean serial drama Descendants of the Son of the Auntie for future Korean productions. It's also had another profound effect, nearly $880 million in related exports. Our Shin Se-min looks into the highly successful TV show's impact on the economy.
An unexpected blue chip for the country's economy, the mega-hit Korean TV drama Descendants of the Sun is raking in millions in profit and economic value. Data from the Export-Import Bank of Korea show that the direct and indirect effects of the TV series are estimated to be above 1 trillion won, or roughly $880 million. The war-themed romantic drama has been exported to 32 countries worldwide, from Asian countries like China, Japan, and Taiwan, to countries in other continents like the U.S., the U.K., and France. Exports related to the series have so far generated around $6.1 million, and the state-run lender expects the TV series to create $7.5 million worth of added value. The 16-episode TV production has exposed a number of Korean products, including big-shot export items like SUVs from Hyundai Motor, cosmetic products from Amore Pacific, and ginseng health supplementary food. And as a result, the country's largest automaker anticipates the drama series to generate $96 million worth of advertising effects, while the cosmetic firm saw one of its best-selling items fly off the shelves, and the red ginseng product sales grew 176% on year, all thanks to the TV show. President Park Geun-hye and a number of industry watchers are thrilled over the success of the drama series, with its aim of boosting Hallyu again. Local economists say that Korean dramas have an influence on consumers, mostly in Asia.
Overseas fans of Korean programs are more likely to buy Korean products that appear or are related to the shows. That corresponds to the rise in the country's exports and stimulates surge in the manufacturing industry.
Experts add, however, that both the firms and the government should seize this opportunity and not let the popularity of such show be a one-time experience, but should work to extend its prosperity become a long-term source of cash flow. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
In the nation's political realm, Korea's three main political parties are trying to work out their differences on a number of contentious, long-pending economic bills to clear the way for the new National Assembly that starts work next month. But as our parliamentary correspondent Kim Young-gil reports, an agreement on any front seems ways away.
The ruling Saenuri Party said Friday it is crucial for Parliament to pass 4 labor reform bills it sees as key to job creation and efforts to restructure ailing companies.
The labor reform bills contain a set of comprehensive measures to deal with unemployment and corporate restructuring. Workers will be facing a dire situation if the bills don't pass.
The main opposition Minju Party of Korea said, however, that the labor reform bills fall short of addressing the problem of youth unemployment.
It's laughable they think this labor reform package will boost youth employment. The government and Saenuri Party should instead focus on the polarization in the labor market.
The floor leader urged the ruling party to pass the Minju Party's youth employment bill instead. Meanwhile, the minor opposition People's Party criticized the government's plan to consider a Korean version of quantitative easing, proposed by the ruling party and the president as a way to support corporate restructuring and save the economy.
A move to consider quantitative easing means that the Korean economy is in crisis. Before something like that is even considered, the government must first acknowledge its economic failures.
Instead, Ahn proposed a government injection of stimulus. The deputy floor leaders of the three parties will meet next Wednesday to iron out their differences on the economy and settle any remaining parliamentary affairs before the new National Assembly comes in at the end of next month. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
It's a war, a bidding war among Korea's three biggest telecommunications companies and to secure the best bandwidth for faster and broader data services. Well, the total cost of the auction, which could last over a week, could reach up to $3 billion. Our Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
Korea's three major mobile carriers, SK Telecom, KT and LG U+, are set to battle it out to secure premium operating frequency bandwidths put up for auction by the government. 5 blocks of bandwidths are up for grabs, worth over $2 billion. The auction will take place in 2 stages. First, there will be 50 rounds of bids, and if a winner is not found by then, one will be chosen through a secret sealed auction. The whole process could take up to 8 days. The 2.1 GHz bandwidth, also known as the golden spectrum, is expected to attract the most attention. It is used for super-fast LTE services and is likely to be used for the next-generation 5G services in the near future as well. This block alone could end up drawing bids of almost $1 billion. SK Telecom, which previously owned the block, will be looking to secure it again as it has already invested $750 million into network facilities for the bandwidth. Before 2011, the government had the responsibility of assigning the bandwidth, but it was later accused of favouring certain carriers. Now, however, the auction process has also come under fire due to huge costs that have come from the bidding wars. Still, as the Korean public's appetite for mobile data continues to grow, the carriers have been left with little choice. Data usage for mobile devices in Korea has increased by 600% in the past 3 years, and securing the best frequency to provide the fastest service is seen as key for the ultra-competitive mobile market in Korea. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
In health news, a third Zika virus infection confirmed in this country. Korea's health authorities announced today that the brother of a man diagnosed with the infection 2 days ago has tested positive for the mildly contagious virus. Now, although not categorized as a confirmed Zika patient, the third confirmed case is raising fears of a possible spread of the virus throughout this country. Our Kim Mo-gyun has the details.
The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced on Friday that the elder brother of Korea's second Zika patient also tested positive for the virus in a urine test. However, the man has not been categorized as a Zika patient yet, as he showed no typical symptoms. He traveled to the Philippines in April together with his younger brother, who got bitten by a mosquito carrying the virus during the trip. The newly infected person was confirmed to have joined the Korean Army on Tuesday to serve his 2-year mandatory military service, but he has been admitted to a military hospital the next day after receiving a call from the KCDC. A military official said that since the third infected person does not show any related symptoms and that the virus is only transmitted through mosquitoes, there is no need to put the members of the third infected person's troops under quarantine. The latest infection is raising concerns as 80% of people infected with Zika worldwide do not experience any symptoms, which makes it more difficult to prevent its spread. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Let's now take a breather with some classical music. A Swiss-based quartet playing some of the finest instruments ever made recently joined forces with a Korean pianist in Seoul for an unforgettable performance. Our Oh Soo-young brings us this beautiful musical ensemble.
The vibrant tone of Mozart and Barber's sober yet evocative tones fill up the halls of Korea's landmark cultural complex. The sounds are remarkably fine and articulate, distinguishable as Stradivari quality. The Swiss-based Stradivari Quartet performed at the Seoul Art Center, delivering chamber music classics with world-renowned Stradivari instruments.
Both pieces are quite different. The first one very classical, but the Barber is very romantic, a little bit sad, and very deep heart piece.
We have these 4 Stradivaris, we have a lot of chords, we have a huge crescendo, and that helps a lot that they have the same chance to come through and the same quality of sound.
Crafted by Antonio Stradivari in the early 18th century, these stringed instruments are considered some of the finest ever made, excelling in sound, form and beauty. The Italian artisan made around 1,100 pieces during his time, and around 650 survive today. These highly coveted antiques changed hands over the centuries, from royals and nobles to dealers and students. The Swiss Stradivari Foundation Habis Reutinger now possesses some of these instruments and lends them to the Stradivari Quartet. Sharing these exquisite qualities with a Korean audience, the quartet joined hands with the country's own Huh Seung-yeun, a pianist based in Switzerland, known for her conservative German pianism. The ensemble performed one of Schumann's most acclaimed quintets.
While Schumann emphasizes the piano, each string part is very technical, so the beautiful sounds of the Stradivari instruments highlight the piece. They also inspire me as a pianist. We are happy to present this magnificent piece to our Korean audience.
Every note of these timeless pieces played has been brought to life by the talents of these virtuosos on some of the world's most prized instruments, here in the capital of Seoul. Oh Seung-yeun, Arirang News.
North Korea has sentenced a Korean-American man to 10 years of hard labor for crimes against the state. Bruce Harrison joins me live with more. Now, Bruce, this is becoming an all-too-familiar scene, a video purportedly showing a defendant begging for forgiveness and then later being hit with harsh sentences.
Yeah, Kang-young, this is the second time we've seen this play out this year. On Friday, North Korea sentenced 62-year-old Kim Dong-chol, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in South Korea. Chinese state media report he's guilty of trying to subvert the North Korean social system and gather state and military secrets for spying purposes.
And Kim reportedly confessed to those crimes and said that he was ordered by the South Korean and the U.S. government. But of course, such confessions, though, are believed to be coerced by the North Korean regime.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to note again that he's an American because in the past, what we've seen North Korea do is leverage North Korean detainees to try and get high-profile visits from the United States. Rarely do detainees in such cases end up serving their full sentences, though. But for now, Kim faces 10 years, and it's unlikely the remorse he showed in court will have any impact on the length of his detainment.
I've fallen victim to South Korea and committed a terrible and indelible crime.
Last month, Pyongyang sentenced 21-year-old university student Otto Warmbier to 15 years of hard labor. While touring the north in early January, Warmbier was detained for reportedly trying to steal a political propaganda poster from his hotel in the capital. High-ranking U.S. officials, including former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, have traveled to Pyongyang to negotiate for the release of jailed Americans. Right now, 6 foreigners, including Kim and 3 South Koreans, are known to be detained in the north. Chinese state media reports China's parliament has passed a law restricting foreign NGOs. It's part of legislation the government has put forward amid President Xi Jinping's crackdown on dissent. The law will take effect January 1st next year, and it grants broad powers to police to question NGO staff, monitor their finances, regulate their work, and even shut down offices. NGOs and foreign governments criticized the early drafts of the law for being too vague in its definition of what constituted actions that could harm China's national interests. The White House was quick to respond. It said it's deeply concerned that the new law will narrow the space for civil society in China.
Now, Bruce, leaders from all across Africa are meeting in Kenya to save the continent's giant animals, elephants and rhinos. Experts warn that if this poaching isn't stopped, Africa's elephant population could be extinct.
Yeah, some experts have even said maybe even with just a few decades they could become extinct. So African leaders, scientists, and other people seeking goodwill are holding what's called the Giants Club Summit. This event aims to showcase initiatives against poaching that have been effective. Experts say a bigger problem, though, than poaching is big demand on the black markets.
So what we have to do is somehow persuade people who buy elephant ivory that doing so, they're destroying one of the most valuable animals on our planet.
The Kenyan government will end the conference by burning an estimated black market value $30 million of poached ivory.
Well, some are arguing that, burning this ivory is a waste, as, selling them could, in fact, further the group's cause.
Yeah, that's true. But the Kenyan government is standing by what it said that selling this ivory will only increase demand, and demand, it says, is cutting into demand is the only way it's going to stop the sale of ivory.
Right. I myself have witnessed that when I lived in Africa decades ago. And elephants also draw important tourism dollars to that country as well.
Definitely, definitely.
All right, Bruce, thank you so much for that coverage of this week, all of this week, and I'll see you on Monday.
Sure, no problem.
Well, the last weekend of April is upon us, and by the look of things, many will be hitting the road for weekend getaways for sure. Let's head straight over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center to find out what the weather has in store for us this weekend. Now, Ji-hyun, the weather was gorgeous today. I'm sure many of us here in Korea are just delighted to see their work week come to an end today.
That is right, and as you mentioned just a while ago, this weekend is forecast to be quite busy, especially on the highways, as many will travel across the country. So you might expect to spend about an extra hour out on the roads throughout the weekend.
Well, Ji-hyun, I hope the weather won't disappoint us, but looking back, we haven't had good weather on weekends for a while now.
That is right, but actually, the sad news, the capital will have yet again dust and rain. Showers are expected for Saturday afternoon, but they should be very sporadic with less than 5 millimeters of precipitation, and the level of fine dust could also go up higher than normal during the day, but the rest of the country should have a normal air quality and mostly sunny skies on Saturday and Sunday. So up here in Seoul, the first day of May, which is Sunday, will have better weather conditions to be outdoors, with the mercury hitting 26 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies. Just beware of big gaps in temperatures and dress accordingly. So on that note, let's move on to tomorrow's temperature readings. Here in the capital, we'll start out at about 12 degrees Celsius, while Busan and Jeju will kick off at 13 degrees Celsius. And as for the daily highs, here in Seoul, we'll see a high of 22 degrees Celsius, while Busan and Jeju will hit 23 and 24. Now, it seems like you need to have an umbrella handy for early next week, as rain will soak the entire country on Monday and Tuesday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, selfies are everywhere. That is our broadcast on this Friday night. I'm Moon Gan-young. Hope you enjoy the final weekend of April wherever you are. Thanks for staying with us. For those of your viewers in other parts of the world, have a good one. For those of you here in Korea and throughout Asia, good night.